Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we're talking Red Raider Thump Squad, Young Guns, and 56,200 butts in seats. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right.
Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, and it's Chris. It's great to be back with you on a Friday, wrapping up the week in a fun way because we got Red Raider football to dive into on today's episode. We're going to take a listen to head coach Joey McGuire talking about some of those young guns standing out so far in fall camp. Also, we'll get to a decision as to how many butts will be seated at Jones Stadium later on in the show, obviously as construction is ongoing there in the south end zone. But we will begin the program, Chris, talking about that hit squad, baby, talking about them thumpers. We're talking physicality. And Coach McGuire was asked about some of those physical guys that were standing out to him so far in camp. Of course, you're trying to keep guys healthy. You're not wanting to go too crazy with all the physicality. It's a much different world than, say, it was in 84 or 94 or maybe even 2004 when you're talking about practice. But it is still football after all, and some physicality has got to be a part of it. And here is Coach McGuire on some of the guys that are standing out in that category so far during camp.
I think Josiah Pierre as an inside linebacker has been really, really physical. Joseph Adedire has been really physical off the edge. I mean, it's easy to name the two D tackles. Those dudes are animals. What's so much fun is seeing the D tackles and then our interior offensive line. We're so much more physical in the offensive line. I said yesterday to Mason Tharp, he has had a camp as good as any tight end that I've ever been around or watched. Man, just his change in body. He's 270 pounds, and he can catch the ball. He's got great hands, and he's a really good athlete. But when we keep him in pass pro, man, he's done a great job in pass pro, and he's been extremely physical in blocking. So, those guys, I think another guy I haven't said a lot about, but Rabbit is having a great camp. I mean, he's so vocal. He is the vocal leader back there in the secondary, so been really proud of him. And, it's been more thud, but he's been really physical. I mean, he's carrying, probably another 8 to 9 pounds than what he played with last year. So there's a lot more thump whenever he's coming downhill.
Yeah, I was trying to look up, as those guys, as Joey was talking about some of those guys, like some of the guys that I was wondering that he would mention. But it's you never know, when coaches are asked a question about, hey, who's been the most physical, who's been the fastest, who stood out to you, you never know what answer you're going to get. And there's a variety of reasons why you may get names listed off or names not listed off. But I think what you hear from Coach McGuire is really you hear all old guys right there. Rabbit, the D tackles, Josiah Pierre. These are all guys, Mason Tharp. These are all guys that are upperclassmen. And you're right. It is different. Even you mentioned, I think 04 was the most recent year, but it's even different from 2014. I think coaches really try to do the right thing, and some teeter with this and kind of have this internal debate on what exactly is best. And you just can't play this sport without tackling and without doing some level of physicality with a scrimmage or whatever. But I do think those are very limited compared to the way it used to be when this was a everyday kind of occurrence. And I think you try to be very intelligent about putting your guys in certain positions, especially when you already kind of know what they can do. Yeah, you don't want up in Laramie be the first time that anybody's tackling somebody in the last year since we hadn't tackled anybody since Ole Miss last year. That would not necessarily work or be smart, but you try to take care of your guys because, man, the season is really a journey, man, and it really can be dictated by who is on the field for you and who's not. But I love hearing the name first out of Coach McGuire's mouth of Josiah Pierre, because this is not – I don't have a question about Josiah Pierre whatsoever. I know he can play. He's very smart. This is a mature – he's the one – him and Tyler Owens were the ones talking to me about, man, I'm trying to focus on getting my enough sleep every night and making sure that I'm doing the right things with my 5 meals a day and all these kind of next level type things. So they've kind of taken this next step of, I'm not just this college kid. I'm like trying to look at the next phase and separate myself and really treat this like a pro, which is what Joey talks about. But the fact that Josiah Pierre's position switch is an inside linebacker, because there was nobody more physical on this team last year than Krishan Merriweather. So I like hearing that answer for sure.
Man, there were some of those guys I really liked hearing mentioned. I didn't really have any expectation of who he might go to there, but I love to hear a DB in Rabbit being mentioned. I love to hear a guy we were just talking about yesterday, Mason Tharp. I mean, he throws in a tight end mention as far as one of those guys. And I would say one of the exceptions, because we're talking about how many old guys are in this group, this guy isn't, totally green behind the years, but a little younger, Adidere. And I'm thinking about him as one of the more interesting individual cases this offseason, because wasn't there like some talk happening and maybe still happening, concerning like red shirts and things like that for a guy that was flashing last year, in some rotational duty. So I was really interested to hear him mentioned.
So, Joseph Adidere was maybe the highlight of your recruiting class last year. And he plays as a true freshman because of it.
Yeah.
I think that this is one of the best young players on your entire football team. There was some chatter, I think, whispers or whatever. And I think Joey has kind of maybe talked about this openly. It wasn't some big secret.
Right.
To where are we deep enough to where we can get him his year back, since he didn't get to redshirt last year and he had to play as a true freshman? Can we extend his college career? And I'll tell you that CJIU was asked about this the other day, and he wanted no part of these kinds of talks. He's like, I don't know anything about redshirting. Like, I'm not talking about that. Like, he was very defiant and like kind of, I don't know, seemingly irritated that the question was even asked. And again, some of that is, okay, does he not want to introduce that thought to Joseph? Did they not want them thinking along those lines? Have they changed that plan? Is that still the plan? I don't know. But because the thought was, this is a guy that we would love to like keep here longer. It's not like a negative that you're trying to redshirt him. It's like, we needed you last year. We still need you this year, but I think we've got some more pieces around you. Maybe we don't need you. However, we can still play you against Oregon. We could play you against Kansas State.
Yep.
Play you against TCU. We could play you against Texas, and then and we still get to redshirt you. So I don't know ultimately what they'll do. But it's kind of a fascinating conversation. But yes, Adidere is one of the best big young players you've got on your team, man. I mean, he's kind of that next wave. And so I think if anything, the redshirt talk is just trying to keep him here longer.
Yeah. And if it works out to be a wise move and obviously something that's good for him and he's into it, then, by all means do what you do. I can understand though why, if you're a defensive coach, you might be thinking, what? No, this guy, you put this guy in sweats? No, we're going to go ahead and keep pads on this dude because he was flashing last year. And as you get guys like Bradford and Hutchings back, and maybe there wasn't just obviously expectation or guarantee at various points then that would happen, it does kind of change that room at least a little bit and provide you some luxury where maybe you could consider it, but we'll see if it actually, I guess, comes into being.
I don't have the discipline, or wouldn't have the discipline, to be able to do this, just because I would want. It's basically like if you were playing fantasy football, and like you've got your stud wide receiver on your team, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to bench him. I'm good otherwise. Let's just keep my best player, one of my best guys, on the bench. And you know, some scenario to where that, you know, maybe would benefit you years down the road. I would want all my best people there with me and playing, and I just wouldn't be disciplined enough to where I could say, because it's rolling the dice a bit. There's no guarantees that even if you plan to do this, that you can pull it off. But he's one of your best guys, but I think here I don't want to bury the lead here, because I will tell you that Duda Banks, Charles Esters, McAlpine, Quincy Ledet, it's people like that are, you know, Blake Burris. It's people like that are ultimately maybe allowing you to have this as a conversation. Okay. Because Adedire plays some in, he plays some inside, depending on down and distance. And so I think that's really the point, is that we've got depth here, and maybe we don't have to have you. But, boy, I'd sure want my best dudes out there. But, you know, I'd credit to Joey. Well, and with a name like Duda Banks, I mean, you got to be a dude. I mean, it's just – you better. Sounds like somebody that'd be a Duda. Yeah, and I was thinking about your fantasy analogy there, where you're benching a really good player because you think you got enough in the tank or whatever. I was also thinking, like, if you needed to go ahead score and you had a chance to score a touchdown, but instead you took a knee like at the 2-yard line and you said, hey, we'll just kick a field goal. Like, that'd be weird if you ever saw that play out. So, yeah, I think I just go ahead. Roderick Thompson. Well, I'm going to name any names. South end of the end zone, Baylor Bears, the opponents. Trusting that leg, buddy. You trusting that leg. Yeah, I'm like, what? You know. Let's just take all the points, all the players, all the impact we can get. Let's saddle up and ride with our saddlebags full. Okay, how many more Western Cowboy analogies can we make on the show? Stay tuned. Find out coming up next, as we do turn more so to some of those green behind the ears. We'll hear again from Coach McGuire on young guns who have stood out so far in camp. After this on Locked On Texas Tech. First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And if you want a winning team, you need winning parts, and they've got to fit together just right. And it's no different when it comes to your vehicle. Every part's got to fit together perfectly, and that's where eBay Motors steps in. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits exactly right the first time, every time. So head on over to ebaymotors.com right now. That's ebaymotors.com. And just add your right info to the My Garage portal, and then look for the green check to know the part is going to be an exact fit, or you're getting your money back. No risk. In sports or in life, confidence is the name of the game, and that's exactly what you're going to have when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, and with the right parts guaranteed, you'll be back in the game and on the road in no time. So get the right parts with the right fit and at the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Glad to have you along for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech. Thanks for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you got this podcast so you never miss an episode. With Chris, I'm Casey, and we're back to hearing from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire as we're talking Texas Tech football. And Coach McGuire was asked about some of the younger guys who have stood out so far during fall camp.
You know, I've been really happy they were here. You know, they're mid-years freshmen, so it shows up because they know the defense. But, you know, the three DBs, Chapman and BJ Jordan and Jordan Sanford have all done really good. You know, I feel really good about them. But a local guy that I just think is going to be a star. Again, we'll see how much he plays as a freshman. But Marcus Ramon Edwards is, man, he's a special athlete. He's very serious about football. And so, man, I'm really excited about him. You know, the young guy is another young guy that played really well. He actually got some guard and tackle in the scrimmage. Is Caden Carr, very physical kid, man. And you know, he's a kid. He's really athletic for a kid that's 325 pounds, and he loves contact. And so, That's another guy, Don, whenever you were asking that, he's another guy that's got some tackle. And it's fun to see because we want to play him at guard, but he's athletic enough to play tackle.
Joey plays to the audience a bit there because he mentions the two local guys. You want to get those clips aired on the local news. But, one of those kids played at Trinity last year, and the other young man, Caden Carr, played at Lubbock Cooper, he played tackle all in his high school career. But let's talk about those three other guys because those are the three guys that I don't think Caden Carr or Marcus Ramon Edwards will factor in much immediately this year at all. I think maybe special teams for Marcus Ramon Edwards, maybe they get some of their 4 games. I mean, Caden Carr, I think they purposely don't want to play him because with linemen, man, you want to keep him in the weight room and kind of grow him up, even though that Caden Carr looks like he's a Big 12 lineman already. But those other 3 are likely to see playing time and potentially meaningful playing time. And if you remember back to the spring, Joey calls them the triplets. Now, this is not Aikman, Emmett, and Irvin triplets like the Cowboys had in the early 90s that were winning Super Bowls. But this is what they kind of designated these guys as the triplets because they're 3 DBs. They're 3 early enrollees. They're all 3 factoring in early. One of them is more of a pure corner in Chapman Lewis. I think Brendan Jordan is more of the star, kind of the hybrid linebacker safety, and then I think Jordan Sanford is more of a safety type, pure safety type as well. So, and they've got some versatility to them, and will be moved around a bit, but. I remember Marcel Yates, I think, at one point talking about these 3 guys, and he said something to the effect of, and it really stuck out to me, but he said something to the effect of, because he hasn't always coached college in the state of Texas. I think he's been on the West Coast and different things, but with these 3 guys in mind, he was like, I can tell the difference in Texas high school football. And he meant it in 2 ways. One, how different these guys' bodies are because the weight rooms and just the different focus on football in this state at the high school level is different than I think where he had spent so much time on the West Coast. But also how they understand and grasp playing DB, playing as a defensive back against passing concepts because everybody runs a variation of the spread. They have 7-on-7 in the summer that it keeps these guys at some level kind of going all year round. And so what you get is a lot more of a polished product. And I just thought I kind of got a kick out of watching him from afar, who's an expert in his field, talk about these guys are different because of these things. And I mean, I think he nails it. And I think that these 3 guys will play meaningful snaps this season and for years to come. But this is kind of the future of your secondary, or these 3 triplets.
The legal firm of Chapman Lewis, Jordan, and Sanford, which is every time you nail the names, because I'm still trying to get used to them, and that's helping me to view them as names on the side of a brick building somewhere, maybe on Broadway. You nail it every time. You just roll it off the tongue like I've noticed this offseason. You're like Chapman Lewis, Jordan Sanford, because we got a Brendan Jordan, we got a Jordan Sanford. That's going to trip some folks up, all right? So just follow Chris Level's lead here on Locked On Texas Tech, and we can keep it sorted out. One thing that we won't hear from Joey McGuire today, but he did say also about his defensive backfield in general, Chris, I thought was really interesting, and it speaks to some of the really good work these guys are getting as soon as they got on campus and through spring and fall now. But the 2 quarterbacks, primarily 2 quarterbacks that they're facing in practice, he talked about obviously the skill and the talent of guys like Tyler Shuck and Baron Morton, but also some of the experience, some of the cleverness that they have as players by this point in their career. And he mentioned the eyes. He's like, we got 2 quarterbacks that can, mislead some guys with their eyes. And so it's been great for those DBs to get that kind of feel in what they're facing. And he spoke to, obviously, the benefit you would think that would be for them whenever they do face some of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. And starting September 9th outside of the Big 12, whenever Bo Nix, who's got a New York City billboard, comes to Lubbock, Texas.
He does. It's funny you mentioned that. He does have a billboard on Park Avenue, I think they're in NYC. I think you're not going to get tested from a DB standpoint necessarily against Wyoming. Okay. They're going to be more run it right at you, ball control. Bo Nix, however, though, this is going to be maybe the best QB receiver combo that you see maybe until you get to the tail end of the season against Texas. And that's assuming that Quinn Ewers has played well to that point and is still the quarterback. But, Bo Nix, to your point, Cowan, this is one on paper anyway. This is going to be one of the best quarterbacks that you see all season. And I think Vegas odds and all kinds of metrics would suggest that, your DBs will be tested early and often. And that's why like the Braylon Lux thing is so big for you here. That's why, I think you're kind of holding out hope about AJ McCarty because of this early game and just the experience in general with dealing with a really good quarterback. What's fascinating though is after Bo Nix, it really drops off from a quality QB standpoint for a while. You're not going to see anybody that really makes you nervous on paper for several weeks because Tarleton and then West Virginia and I think Houston is in there, and I don't want to. That's not a slight on Donovan. I think he scares me more as a runner than he does as a thrower. The BYU with Keaton Slovis, I think there's a reason he's kind of bounced around, but that Bo Nix matchup, that is this is a Heisman Trophy candidate. Okay. I don't know if he's a front runner by any means, but this is what you're dealing with here. It's just kind of fascinating because the guy that's going to be playing for you that day used to play where Bo Nix is playing. It's just, it's wild, man.
I'm trying to think what neighborhood my billboard would be in if they tried to throw me up in NYC. I don't think it'd be Park Avenue. It'd probably be like Hell's Gates or wherever they hung Leo DiCaprio's friend on that fence in that movie. Somewhere around in the Bowery. The Bowery boys, a fine bunch of bingo boys. I don't know. You're probably maybe more of a Park Avenue guy as well, but I don't think they'd let me in that neighborhood.
I don't. I got to tell you, man, I've been to New York so much before for either personally or just with tech stuff. I have zero desire to be back in Manhattan.
He's seen all he needs to see
ever again. Yeah, so they can. I love the New Yorker. Kudos to you for living there. Respect you, all that stuff. I don't need to go there and be in your world anymore. It makes me claustrophobic. It's too busy. People are just like, I need some space, man. I need some West Texas in my life.
Back to West Texas, baby.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we will wrap up our conversation coming up next. Sticking with Texas Tech football, but how about more importantly, our butts? And how many seats are going to be available for those butts to be planted at Jones Stadium this season? We'll get to it next to wrap it up. I Locked On Texas Tech. Thanks for making Locked On Texas Tech a part of your day, whenever, wherever, however you're making it happen. Glad you did it. Do it again next week because we'll be back on Monday to kickstart the week all over again with one fewer weekend now standing between us and Texas Tech football. It's coming up September 2nd from Laramie, Wyoming. September 9 is the home opener, Chris, as the Oregon Ducks come to town. And as we made reference to just a moment ago, now an official number from Texas Tech for 2023 Jones Stadium capacity. 56,200 is the number, I believe, down around 3,900 seats from the original capacity. And we don't still yet know what the capacity is going to be on the other side of construction when we get back to things being completed there in 2024. But you lose around 4,000 this year, 56,200. I think for my money's worth, and maybe a lot of Texas Tech fans would like to get back to that 60,000 and above mark. You've been like 60,100 or so, I think, has been around your capacity leading up to this time. But as you got the big project there in the south end zone, obviously some things being shuffled around.
Yeah, the reality is starting to set in that this season is upon us. Your stadium, you're about to kind of see all this firsthand in your face. It's been talked about. There's been a crane. There's been a camera on this project 24 hours a day.
Hey, that's right. By the way, I need to mention yesterday during the Locked On Texas Tech premiere, which we premiere it every morning. You get a premiere there, and then, of course, you can watch it at your convenience. But during the premiere, and I appreciate all that are out there during the premiere, and you can chat with us and whatnot if you're there. I'm just switching over, and I'm partly to blame because I switched channels too. I thought I need to check out the construction cam. I check out the construction cam at the same time. 20 more people watching a camera with dust on it. Nobody's saying anything. Then's watching the premiere of Locked On Texas. We got beat by a camera yesterday, Chris, and I'm just thinking maybe you and I for Monday's episode should not say a word, and we'll just point the camera out the window and see if maybe we can get a few more viewers. I just wanted to lodge that complaint. It was noticeable, and I have chastised myself for also leaving the Locked On Texas Tech premiere to go watch a construction cam. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I guess that people have been wondering, okay, what's this going to look like? Where's the band sitting? All these things. Yeah, they're going to move the band behind the opposing team's bench, kind of in that corner. I think it's section 23, I think is technically the number. This is where it was years and years ago. I think that they've also going to move some student sections up high because these are permanent changes. There won't be any students or band in this end zone section anymore. This is going to be left for premium seating and, you know, a lot of bells and whistles on that end of the stadium, and not a ton of seating in general, but these are high-end suite type stuff and more club type scenarios. And the entrance of the stadium is going to go right through there, which previously wasn't there. So it's going to be kind of less space and all that. But this is going to be more of a. But I do hope that, like you said, I do hope there's a way to just hit that 60,000 mark instead of like 59.9 or something. You know, it would be nice to just be able to say that there's 60,000 people. Although if they're 59 anything or 58, I'll probably always just reference it as like, yeah, capacity 60,000. I'll probably just round up.
Nobody's counting the extra 100.
But you know, you're a few weeks away from like that end of the stadium being like tarped off. I think there's been discussion about putting a giant QR code on a tarp or a screen so people can like, you know, look at it and it'll take them to what the renovations will look like, and they can see it for people that haven't gotten a feel for what the future and why this is going to be here. I did see, speaking of capacity with the stadium and everything, there's a few things that I did notice. They have installed all the new lights. So I think that you can do the light show, and like when you score a touchdown, the lights can go completely off. You can glow them red. You can do whatever. They can dance, whatever you want to do. But there are also all these, I think, DAS systems, which is like I forget what that acronym stands for. But they're basically it's little boxes to improve cell service and internet and Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff that they've spent quite a bit of money on. And sound system is, I believe, new. So anyway, yeah, you go over there, you're starting to see some of the subtle changes, but there's still the massive part of this that has caused some people to have to move around, and it's going to be parking's going to be a bit tricky. You know, the site cleanup for these folks, because I don't even know. I think they've talked about laying the rest of the turf on the field, like, you know, pretty quickly, so the team can get a few scrimmages and practices on it, but even then, it's like only a 60-yard field right now because there's construction going on that end. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but a lot going on.
Oh, my bad. I got distracted. I was watching the construction camp. My fault. I'm back with you now. Yeah, we got turf going down. QR code sounds cool. I thought originally they were just doing a big hologram of the building itself that we're going to be able to see there. That'd be awesome too. Still got some time to figure that out. Maybe throw on a Locked On Texas Tech YouTube page QR code to that tarp as well. And man, I'm just thinking, you know, timing is everything. How nice would it have been to have the ability to dim the lights or turn the lights out when all those Aggie women used to come to town? God, that'd have made eating that nacho.
Wow, there's some shots fired from years gone by.
What a luxury that is. Yes. I don't know who the new uglies are in the campus or in the conference, but that'd have been nice. Just dim that section once upon a time. Wouldn't have to look at all that livestock. Thanks for joining us throughout the week. Enjoyed it all. Appreciate the time from you, Chris, of course, as always, man. We'll see you on the other side.
Absolutely. Enjoy the weekend.
Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get them casts, and we'll see you back around for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.